She said, "I'm pregnant by him, but you should marry me to avoid a scandal." I decided to lean into the scandal. I threw a huge baby shower and invited both our families. Then I played the voicemail of her begging me to lie for her before announcing the real father's name to the crowd. I, 32M, never thought my engagement party would end with me planning the most spectacular revenge in family history, but here we are. My fiancée had been acting strange for weeks. She'd disappear for hours, claim she was sick when we had plans, and kept checking her phone obsessively. I chalked it up to wedding stress until I found the pregnancy test hidden in her makeup bag 3 months before our wedding. When I confronted her about it, she broke down completely. She told me she was 10 weeks pregnant, but the baby wasn't mine. She'd been seeing my cousin behind my back for months. My own cousin, the guy who was supposed to be my best man. But here's where it gets twisted. Instead of apologizing or ending our engagement, she begged me to marry her anyway. She said her family would disown her if they found out she was pregnant out of wedlock, especially by a married man. Yes, my cousin was married with 2 kids of his own. She actually suggested we could raise the baby together and no one would ever know. She kept saying how it would ruin her reputation and tear both our families apart if the truth came out. She made it sound like I'd be the villain for not going along with her plan. I told her I needed time to think, but honestly, I was just buying time to figure out my next move. She kept calling and texting, alternating between threats and pleas. She even left me a voicemail where she sobbed about how I was being selfish and how I should think about the bigger picture. That voicemail gave me an idea. Instead of calling off the engagement quietly, I decided to embrace the chaos she was so afraid of. I told her I wanted to do something special to celebrate the baby before our wedding. A surprise baby shower for both families. She was hesitant at first, but I convinced her it would be perfect. We could announce the pregnancy to everyone together, and it would show how mature and ready we were for marriage. I could see her calculating in her head, probably thinking this would lock me into her plan. I spent 2 weeks planning the most elaborate baby shower our families had ever seen. I rented the community center, hired a caterer, and invited everyone. Both our extended families, all our friends, even people from work. I made sure my cousin and his wife would be there too. The decorations were perfect. Pink and blue everywhere. A beautiful cake, games set up, gift tables ready. I even hired a photographer to capture every moment. Everyone was talking about how thoughtful and excited I was about becoming a father. My fiancée kept asking what I was planning to say when we announced, but I told her I wanted it to be a surprise. She seemed nervous but went along with it. I could tell she was relieved that I appeared to be accepting the situation. The day arrived, and the community center was packed. Both our families were there, chatting and mingling, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. My cousin showed up with his wife and kids, acting like nothing had happened. The audacity was almost impressive. I waited until everyone had eaten, and we played a few games. Then I stood up to make the big announcement. I thanked everyone for coming and said how much it meant to us to have all our loved ones there for this special moment. I started by explaining how important family was, how trust and honesty were the foundation of any relationship, and how excited we were to share our news. My fiancée was beaming next to me, probably thinking she'd gotten away with everything. Then I pulled out my phone and connected it to the speaker system I'd set up. I told everyone that before I announced anything, I wanted them to hear something that would give them some context. I played the voicemail she'd left me where she'd begged me to lie about the baby's paternity, mentioned my cousin by name, and sobbed about how the scandal would ruin her life. The room went dead silent. You could hear people's breathing. My fiancé's face went white, then red, then white again. My cousin looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. After the voicemail finished, I calmly announced that my fiancée was indeed pregnant, but the father was actually my cousin, who was sitting right there with his wife and children. I explained that she'd asked me to pretend to be the father to avoid embarrassment, but I decided honesty was more important than protecting people who had betrayed me. The explosion was immediate. My aunt started screaming at my cousin. His wife grabbed their kids and stormed out, but not before calling my fiancé every name in the book. My fiancé's parents were mortified and started arguing with each other about how they'd raised her. My fiancé tried to deny it at first, then tried to blame me for embarrassing everyone. She actually had the nerve to say I was cruel for not just going along with her plan. Several people started filming with their phones, which made her panic even more. My cousin finally admitted everything, probably figuring there was no point in denying it anymore. He tried to downplay it, saying it was just a mistake and they never meant for it to go this far. His wife had come back inside and heard this confession. She threw her wedding ring at him and told him not to come home. The best part was watching my fiancée realize that her carefully constructed plan had backfired spectacularly. Not only was she not getting a husband to cover for her, but now everyone in both families knew exactly what kind of person she was. Some family members tried to scold me for handling it so publicly, but most were on my side. My uncle actually thanked me for exposing what his son had been doing. He said he'd suspected something was wrong in my cousin's marriage, but never imagined this. The photographer I'd hired captured everything. I made sure to get copies of all the photos, especially the ones of my fiancé and cousin's faces when the truth came out. Within an hour, the community center was mostly empty except for the cleanup crew and a few family members who stayed to make sure I was okay. My fiancé had left with her parents, who were arguing the entire way to their car. But the story doesn't end there. Update 1. The fallout from the baby shower was even more dramatic than I'd expected. Within days, the story had spread through our entire social circle and both families. My cousin's wife filed for divorce immediately, and she's going after him for everything. Apparently, this wasn't his first affair, just the first one that resulted in a pregnancy. My ex-fiancée tried to do damage control by telling people I'd trapped her and that she was the real victim. She claimed I'd manipulated her into the situation and that the baby shower was psychological abuse. Very few people bought this story, especially after hearing the voicemail, where she clearly outlined her plan to deceive me. Her parents contacted my parents to try to work out some kind of arrangement. They suggested maybe we could still make it work, that people make mistakes, and that I should consider the family reputation. My dad told them exactly what they could do with their reputation concerns. The most surprising development was that several people came forward with information about my cousin's behavior over the years. Apparently, he'd been inappropriate with other women in the family, including some cousins' wives. My aunt was devastated to learn that her son had been causing problems for years, and everyone had just been keeping quiet to avoid drama. My ex-fiancée moved back in with her parents temporarily, but that arrangement didn't last long. Her father was apparently so embarrassed by the whole situation that he could barely look at her. She ended up moving in with a friend about an hour away. She tried calling me several times, alternating between angry accusations and tearful apologies. She left messages saying I'd ruined her life and that she hoped I was happy with myself. Then she'd call back crying and saying she understood why I was angry, but that we could work through it. I blocked her number after the first week. Update 2. 3 months after the baby shower incident, things have settled into a new normal, though the repercussions are still playing out. My cousin's divorce was finalized quickly since his wife had documentation of his affairs going back years. She got the house, primary custody of their kids, and a substantial portion of his assets. He's living in a tiny apartment and working 2 jobs to cover his child support and alimony payments. He tried to reach out to me once to apologize and see if we could repair our relationship. He said he never meant for things to go so far and that he regretted hurting me. I told him that sleeping with my fiancée wasn't an accident that happened once. It was an ongoing betrayal that lasted months. There's no coming back from that. My ex-fiancée had the baby last month. She tried to get my cousin to be involved, but he wants nothing to do with the child. He's too busy trying to rebuild his life after losing his family and most of his income. She's essentially a single mother now, which is exactly what she was trying to avoid when she asked me to marry her. She attempted to contact me when the baby was born, sending photos and saying she wished things had worked out differently. I didn't respond. Several mutual friends told me she was telling people that I was heartless for not caring about an innocent baby, but most people saw through that manipulation. The really interesting development was how this affected our extended families. My aunt and uncle's marriage survived, but barely. My uncle felt guilty for not recognizing his son's behavior earlier, while my aunt was angry at everyone for not telling her what was happening. They're in counseling now. On my ex-fiancée's side, her parents' relationship deteriorated significantly. Her mother apparently blamed her father for being too permissive when she was growing up, while he blamed her mother for not teaching her proper values. They separated about 2 months ago. Some people in both families still think I was too harsh in how I handled the revelation. They argue that I could have dealt with it privately and saved everyone the embarrassment. But I noticed that none of those people were offering to help raise another man's child or deal with the ongoing lies that would have been necessary to maintain the charade. Update 3. It's been 8 months since the baby shower, and I'm finally ready to close this chapter of my life completely. My ex-fiancée has been struggling as a single mother, which was predictable given that she'd never planned to actually handle parenthood alone. She reached out through mutual friends several times, trying to get me to reconsider some kind of relationship. Not romantic necessarily, but some kind of support system. She even had her mother call my mother to suggest that since I'd ruined her life, I had some responsibility to help with the consequences. My mother shut that down immediately, pointing out that actions have consequences and that my ex-fiancée's situation was entirely of her own making. The most satisfying vindication came when one of her close friends admitted that my ex-fiancée had been planning to pass the baby off as mine from the beginning. She'd actually calculated the timing and realized she could make it work if she was careful about dates. It wasn't a panic decision after getting caught. It was a deliberate deception from day one. My cousin lost his second job because the story had spread enough that his employer didn't want the drama. He's moved back in with his parents, which has created tension in that household too. His ex-wife won't let him see his legitimate children unsupervised because she doesn't trust his judgment anymore. As for me, I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. I started therapy to work through the betrayal and manipulation I experienced. It helped me understand that I wasn't responsible for protecting other people from the consequences of their choices, which had been a pattern in my relationships. I also started dating again recently. I was hesitant at first, worried about trusting someone new, but I've met someone who appreciates honesty and direct communication. She actually thinks what I did at the baby shower was brilliant, though she admits she might have handled it differently. The best part of all this is the clarity it gave me about who the important people in my life really are. The family members and friends who supported my decision to expose the truth are the ones I want to keep close. The ones who thought I should have quietly accepted being deceived revealed their own character flaws. Looking back, that baby shower was the best money I ever spent. Instead of spending decades married to someone who saw me as a convenient solution to her problems, I got a clean break and a clear view of who everyone really was. My ex-fiance's life didn't turn out the way she planned, but that's what happens when you build your future on lies and manipulation. She wanted to avoid scandal by tricking me into marriage, but she ended up creating a much bigger scandal by getting exposed publicly. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. It's simply refusing to enable someone's bad behavior and letting the natural consequences play out in front of everyone who matters. I heard through the family grapevine that she's considering moving to another state to start over somewhere nobody knows her story. Honestly, that might be the smartest thing she's done through this entire situation. As for the baby, I hope the child grows up healthy and happy despite the circumstances of their birth. None of this was their fault, and they deserve better than the chaos their parents created. The community center still displays some of the photos from that day in their event showcase. I drive by sometimes and remember how satisfying it felt to choose truth over convenience, even when it was messy and complicated. That's the thing about integrity. It's not about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about refusing to participate in deception, even when everyone around you thinks it would be easier to just go along with the lie.